I gave you everything, and you gave me silence, secrets, and shame. Those were the eerie words that rang out in the courtroom as Meri Brown, the reserved, faithful first wife of Kody Brown, stood tall, not as a victim, but as a warrior, finally finding freedom. In a moment that appeared to be ripped right out of a Hollywood epic, but was 100% real life, Meri confronted Kody in front of the judge and the world, with cold, hard facts, years of suffering, and an iron will. This was not a divorce. This was justice in action. But how did it ever come to this? For more than a decade, Sister Wives fans witnessed the gradual disintegration of the Brown family's utopian illusion. At the center of the drama was Kody, the self-styled leader of a polygamous dynasty, once balancing 4 wives, dozens of children, and a well-crafted public image. But beneath the smiles, something sinister was festering. It began with subtle ostracization. Meri, the wife of years, was shoved aside, her voice diminished, her love spurned. The emotional abandonment wasn't a scream. It was a drip of cold shoulders, passive-aggressive remarks, and constantly being made to feel less than. Along came Robyn, the youngest, newest wife to become part of the family. Suddenly, all of Kody's time, attention, money, and love went to her. Vacations? Robyn? New houses? Robyn? Business concepts? Robyn? Family harmony? Forgotten. And Meri? She languished in the background, suffocating in silence. Fans pleaded with her to depart. Her own child questioned her allegiance. But Meri remained, until remaining was more agonizing than releasing. That's when she started gathering the truth. Quietly, clinically, and unannounced. And when the day at court arrived, Meri was prepared. With shaking hands but unflinching eyes, she argued her case, and what happened next made everyone in the courtroom gasp. She had subpoenaed secret financial documents that showed Kody had funneled joint family funds into unknown accounts, all under Robyn's name. That money? It was supposed to be split equally. But Kody had built a financial fortress around Robyn and her children, leaving the others in the dust. Even the judge looked shell-shocked. But it didn't stop there. Meri's legal team delivered blow after blow, from real estate records, showing how Kody had manipulated shared assets, to private emails proving emotional gaslighting. And when Robyn took the stand, the courtroom saw something they had never seen before. A breakdown so raw, it made even Kody flinch. Sobbing, she claimed ignorance. She insisted she had no idea what Kody had done. But was it real? Or an act? Fans of the show had long presumed that Robyn had gradually become the real wife in Kody's mind, and the others became background figures. But now, even Robyn wasn't sure where she stood. I feel manipulated, she cried. I didn't ask for this. And Meri sat by, expressionless. She had shed her last tear many years ago. And then, she saw the empire she helped construct crumble before her eyes, brick by brick. Then the ruling. The judge, in a ruling that stunned even the most seasoned courtroom observers, granted a full and final divorce between Meri and Kody. But that wasn't all. He ordered Kody to pay $415,000 in monetary damages to Meri, for emotional damages, financial dishonesty, and marital trust betrayal. He also took away Kody's financial authority over the family finances, and created an opening for other wives to legally question him. It was a loss Kody never expected. His hard-won image destroyed. His grip on the family lost. His marriage to Robyn shaken to its foundation. As Meri emerged from that courtroom, she did not appear victorious. She appeared free. Reporters engulfed her. But she merely uttered one thing. This wasn't revenge. This was survival. And the world paid attention. Millions of viewers who used to sympathize with Meri now stood in amazement. She had transitioned from being in the background to becoming front-page news, from silence to bravery. She had not only spoken for herself, but for every woman who lingered too long, waited too patiently, or loved too hard without being reciprocated. And what about Kody? He departed quietly. No cameras, no interviews, no explanation. The man who used to make the rules now stood utterly alone. Not even Robyn, his former most loyal ally, any longer believed him to be a man of honor. In private, insiders claim that tension between them is mounting, and the once golden couple could be next to fall apart. This courtroom fight wasn't about assets, cash, or celebrity. It was about pride, closure, and honesty. It was about revealing years of manipulation, abandonment, and deception, and once and for all shutting it down. And by doing that, Meri Brown didn't merely leave a bad marriage, she torched the blueprint for Kody's polygamous business, leaving nothing but ash behind for him to pick up. So now, the question isn't whether Meri won. The real question is, will Kody ever heal? Will Robyn stand by him now that the mask has fallen? And what happens when the other wives like Janelle and Christine start bringing their own receipts? Because Meri's move has opened the door. And this is just the beginning. Stay tuned, because in this video, we're diving deep into the explosive courtroom details no one expected, Robyn's public breakdown, and what insiders say happened afterward. Kody's shattered image, and what it means for the entire Brown family legacy. And how Meri's bold stand has sparked a ripple effect across all the sister wives. Grab your popcorn. This isn't just reality TV drama. This is a real-life revolution. And Meri Brown is leading the charge. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. Not of fear, not of despair, but of expectation. You could sense the emotional tempest brewing as Meri Brown entered the room with head held high, her heels clicking across the marble floor like a drumbeat. Her eyes, weary yet fierce, swept the room, and then landed squarely on Kody Brown. He sat on the other side of the room, hunched, fidgeting, not at all the confident, over-assured patriarch viewers of Sister Wives remembered. Gone was the bravado, the swagger, the man who once believed he could juggle 4 wives, manipulate the narrative, and emerge unscathed. In his place sat someone much smaller, a man slowly realizing he was about to lose everything. Meri had always been painted as the quiet one, the loyal one, the one who held on the longest even when there was nothing left to hold. For years, she tried to keep the family together, sacrificing her own dignity in the process. While the world watched her suffer silently on national television, she stayed, she defended him. She made excuses. But today, that Meri was gone. Today, she was here not to ask for answers. She was here to deliver consequences. The judge entered, and the courtroom stood. Cameras were prohibited, but reporters filled the benches, each one armed with notepads and hungry eyes. This wasn't just a legal proceeding. This was a moment in reality television history, a dramatic fall from grace for one of the most controversial figures in modern pop culture, Kody Brown. As everyone took their seats, Meri's lawyer stood up and began with a quiet, devastating statement. Your Honor, this case is not simply about divorce. This case is about betrayal, financial manipulation, psychological harm, and the long-term effects of spiritual and emotional abandonment. My client did not come here to settle. She came here for justice. That's when Meri rose. Calm, collected, and composed, she walked to the center of the courtroom and looked directly at Kody. No tears, no shaking, just a quiet, simmering strength that silenced the room. And then she said it, I gave you everything, and you gave me silence, secrets, and shame. For years, I was expected to keep smiling while my world fell apart. I was blamed, humiliated, rejected, not in private, but in front of millions of viewers. And I stayed, not because I was weak, but because I believed in the promise we made. Until I realized, the only one keeping that promise was me. She was told by the judge to continue her statement. And continue she did, with detail and force. Meri outlined how, year after year, Kody gradually started backing away. First emotionally, then physically. He would stay over at Robyn's place while inventing excuses to keep away from hers. Discussions turned into fights. Fights turned into silence. At some point, Meri revealed she became an unwanted burden instead of a wife. And then there was the betrayal she couldn't forgive. Financial dishonesty. She revealed how she found out that Kody had been moving funds around. The shared finances of the family, which were once used to fund the entire household, particularly during the initial seasons of the show, had supposedly been diverted to Robyn's side of the family. Real estate was put in her name. Trust funds had been established without informing the other wives. And meanwhile, Kody claimed the money was being managed fairly. I questioned things, and I was told I was paranoid, Meri said to the court. I was told to trust him, to trust the family. But there was no family anymore, only Kody and Robyn, and the rest of us living in the ruins of what once was. At that moment, Kody shifted in his seat. He looked stunned, like he never expected her to speak so boldly, especially not in a courtroom filled with witnesses. But it wasn't over. Meri's lawyer presented emails, bank statements, documents that seemed to indicate the financial decisions Kody made were not only unethical, but potentially illegal, if proven to be done with intent to deceive. The judge, visibly shaken, hesitated. He turned to Kody and inquired if he had any reaction to the allegations. Kody remained silent for a few seconds. His jaw was set, his lips puckered, and then, under his breath he said, "That's not how it happened." But he didn't say anything further. And that quietness, that pause, it was deafening. Meri didn't have to yell. She didn't have to weep. Her pain, and her evidence, did all the talking for her. Then, for the first time since the session had started, Robyn rose from her seat. The room waited with bated breath. Wearing all black and looking thin and overwhelmed, she made her way slowly to the witness stand. And just as she was sworn in, her hands started shaking. What ensued was the onset of a complete collapse that would shake the courtroom. But that is getting ahead. To Meri, her last comment in this first session was what really made the moment unforgettable. I lingered longer than I should have. I subscribed to a definition of love that did not exist anymore. But now I see better. I know that love without respect is not love. It is control. And I will never let anyone control me again. And with that, Meri sat down. The room didn't erupt in applause. But it may as well have. The energy had shifted. The judge saw it. The lawyers felt it. The audience knew it. Kody's empire had cracked. Not from screaming or violence, but from the one woman he underestimated the most finally standing up and telling the truth. The judge called a recess, and as all of them went out for a break, the hum between the reporters and onlookers was universal. Meri Brown had just given one of the greatest courtroom moments in reality television history. This was only the start, though. The trial was far from over, and the next hearing would go off in an unexpected emotional direction when Robyn confronted the truth. And the judge. The courtroom was still in shock from Meri Brown's surprising strength and eloquence in the first hearing. Her serene dismantling of Kody Brown had left viewers stunned and visibly shaken her former husband. But nobody, not even the judge, could have prepared for what happened next. When the session came back in after a brief recess, journalists were already on the phone with producers, characterizing it as the most intense courtroom moment in reality TV divorce history. And they weren't lying. What was next for Meri was going to rock the very foundation of Kody's reputation, not only as a husband, but as a provider, a leader, and as a man who always professed to have done the right thing. The judge went back to the bench and cued the session back into order. Meri's lawyer rose and spoke only a single sentence. "Your Honor, we ask to enter into evidence the following documents pertaining to Mr. Kody Brown's mismanagement and hiding of community financial assets." There was a hush in the room, as a heavy binder was carried forth, replete with papers, carefully put in order, clearly set forth with attention to detail and months of research. Meri didn't glance at Kody. She didn't have to. Her proof would speak for itself louder than any argument ever had. The binder held years of bank statements, property deeds, PayPal transactions, tax returns, and internal family emails. Some were old exchanges between Kody and Robyn about money transfers. Others were legal documents revealing property ownership inexplicably transferred into Robyn's name, without the other wife's knowledge. But the most incriminating piece of evidence, a trust fund established nearly 6 years earlier, benefiting only Robyn's children, with contributions allegedly pulled from joint family funds. Not Christine's kids, not Janelle's, not even Meri's biological child, Leon, just Robyn's. Gasps could be heard around the courtroom. The records revealed that Kody had set up this trust in secret, and financed it with a media residuals account. Residuals from reruns of Sister Wives, commercials, and special appearances. Money which was to be distributed to all the wives and children according to their family agreements. Meri's lawyer handed the judge a highlighted portion of a contract signed by all the wives in the early years of the show, agreeing that all TV income would be equally divided among the spouses and children. regardless of whose storyline received more attention. Kody Brown violated this agreement, the lawyer declared. He acted alone in bad faith and in a deceptive manner for the purpose of advancing the interests of one wife and her children over the others. Kody's lawyers protested, trying to get the documents declared invalid, but the judge overruled them, saying that the evidence was strong enough to move on. Then Meri dropped another bombshell. In her own words, documented in a taped telephone conversation 2 years earlier, Kody was heard saying to her, "Look, I have to take care of the kids who are still in my house. I don't have time to be fair to everybody right now." It was not overt, but the implication was clear. He had already emotionally and financially moved on from Christine, Meri, and Janelle's children. He wasn't living as a plural father anymore. He was living as a private husband and dad to Robyn and her children only. The judge paused for a very long time. He took off his glasses. "Mr. Brown, is there any reason this trust was kept hidden from the rest of the family? Were the other spouses aware of its existence?" Kody opened his mouth but said nothing. He looked down. His lawyer responded with vague language about privacy and individual household budgeting. But the damage was already done. Meri's next move. She offered up joint property, a roster of houses, cars, and land bought in the family LLC, which was based in Arizona. But in accordance with new documents, a number of them were secretly retitled in the name of Robyn during 3 years. It was the time when the judge had to raise his voice. "Are you saying Mr. Brown rewrote shared family assets in favor of one spouse without a signature on paper or complete disclosure?" Kody's face turned red. His attorney attempted to be vague, but the proof was unmistakable. Deed titles don't deceive. Nor did the dated computer printouts of when and how Kody submitted those amendments. One of them caught the judge's eye. A deed to an upscale cabin in Flagstaff, bought with income from the Sister Wives book and TV show, but now held only in Robyn Brown's name, though there had been early promises to put all the wives' names on it as co-owners. The judge appeared shocked. And then there was the expert testimony. Meri's legal team had hired a forensic accountant, someone who had spent months combing through all the Browns' public and private financial records. What she presented was devastating. Over $780,000 was diverted from shared accounts to personal use by Kody and Robyn over the last 5 years. At least 3 LLCs were formed, under Kody's direction, with Robyn listed as a majority shareholder, without disclosure to other wives. Conjoint tax returns uncovered dubious write-offs that only disproportionately helped Robyn's family. As the accountant testified, the courtroom was quiet, with the occasional squirm from Kody and obvious discomfort from Robyn. Meri sat quietly, but you could witness the vindication in her eyes. She'd waited years for this, and just when the courtroom couldn't get any more dramatic, the attorney produced a replica of a notarized private contract Kody had previously written and purportedly had Robyn sign, in which if any legal action was taken by the other wives, Robyn would have protection and priority access to family funds. It was like seeing a bomb explode in slow motion. Robyn, who was now visibly shaking, muttered something to her attorney. She was clearly shocked, either because the paper was true, or because it was now out. The judge addressed Kody and once more, "Mr. Brown, didn't you realize the legal implications of favoring one partner in a multi-wife marital system that depended on the communal support system?" Kody, head hung low, replied softly, "It wasn't favoritism. It was circumstantial." Meri's attorney didn't even need to reply. The courtroom already had the answer. What Meri had done wasn't just win a divorce case. She had methodically exposed years of financial gaslighting, favoritism disguised as family values, and betrayal hidden under the veil of spiritual leadership. By the time the session ended, the judge's notes were a tangled mess of underlined statements and highlighted pages. Kody sat slumped in his chair, visibly shaken. And Robyn, well, Robyn was just seconds away from her emotional collapse, which would occur in session 3. But this session Meri Brown had done something remarkable. She demonstrated that behind every controlling man who uses tradition and religion as excuses to manipulate others, there is a woman quietly gathering evidence, and waiting for the opportune moment to strike back. And strike she did. As the courtroom attempted to digest the avalanche of revelations from Meri's legal team, there was one person who hadn't spoken yet. Robyn Brown. The woman at the center of the financial storm, the one who had remained visibly shaken during the earlier sessions, was about to face the judge. But no one expected what came next. The judge, glancing at the documents once more, turned his attention directly toward her. "Mrs. Robyn Brown, stand up and come forward to the witness stand." She paused. For only a moment. Then slowly, unsteadily, she rose and moved forward. Everyone's attention was focused upon her. The once elegant, highly styled favorite wife now seemed tiny and fragile, her accustomed glow overlay by the burden of the moment. She put her hand on the Bible, promised to tell the truth, and sat down under oath. You almost heard the courtroom catch its breath. The judge started off in a calm manner. "Mrs. Brown, as one who has been shown to be a primary beneficiary of the subject financial decisions, do you have familiarity with the trust fund set up for your children? Were you aware of the sole property titles issued to your name? Did you authorize or know about these decisions?" Robyn didn't answer initially. Her lips trembled, her hands writhed in her lap, her shoulders shuddered. Then she finally cracked. One sob rattled her throat, another followed close behind. In seconds she was sobbing wildly, her voice shattering with the anguish of months if not years of silence and unadmitted guilt. "I didn't know, I didn't ask for this," she panted, her voice shaking. I thought he was just protecting us." The judge allowed her a moment to compose herself, but the silence in the courtroom was oppressive. Robyn glanced over at Meri for a split second, then turned her face away. Guilt, shame, or awareness? No one could tell. But the space between them in that courtroom seemed greater than the whole emotional gulf of the past 10 years. "I knew that he was making decisions for our home," Robyn went on, "but I didn't realize it was coming from money that everyone owned. He said that the others had moved on, that they didn't care anymore, that they were all right." Meri blinked neither. She'd heard it all before. But the judge wasn't placated. "Mrs. Brown," he told her bluntly, "are you telling me you didn't know about the trust fund? The property transfers, the financial accounts in your name?" Robyn's tears streamed more furiously now. Her voice was a mere whisper. "I signed papers. I trusted him. He said it was best for the kids, that if anything ever happened to him, we'd be fine." And there it was, the heartbreaking truth. Whether Robyn was truly complicit or simply naive, she had surrendered all control to Kody, blindly following his lead, no matter who it hurt in the process. But the courtroom wasn't a confessional. It was a place for facts, for truth, and for accountability. Meri's attorney stood. "Mrs. Brown, do you recall the day you signed over the deed to the Flagstaff cabin? Did you question why the other wives weren't included?" Robyn stiffened. "I didn't ask. He said we had to act fast, for legal purposes. I trusted him." "Did you get monthly deposits out of the media fund called Brown Family Entertainment LLC?" "Yes, but I thought that was for the children's education and domestic needs." The cross-examination lasted for 20 minutes. At times she stumbled over her words. Other times she simply cried and whimpered, saying, "I don't know," or "I was just following what Kody told me." Onlookers in the courtroom could see the woman once considered queen of Kody's new world slowly unravel under pressure. Her breakdown was not faked. It wasn't staged. It was real, raw, human. But that didn't make her innocent. What made it so strong, and so sad, was that Robyn wasn't crying because she was being accused. She was crying because everything that she thought was based on a lie, and she had been complicit, whether she knew it or not. At one point the judge asked, "Mrs. Brown, do you think now that the other wives were being treated financially badly and you were being treated preferentially?" And Robyn broke once more. "Yes," she whispered tearfully, "I didn't know, but I can see it now. And I'm so sorry." She couldn't even get the words out. In the rear of the courtroom, Meri stood immobile, her expression inscrutable. No smirk, no victory, just quiet resilience. After all she had endured, this wasn't about seeing Robyn crash. It was about enduring a system that had silently broken her for years. The judge made notes as Robyn was dismissed from the stand. She all but fell back into her seat, clearly shaken, holding a tissue in both hands. Kody didn't sympathize with her. In fact, he didn't even glance at her. That photo told it all. The man who once stood before the world and said Robyn was his soulmate, the love of his life, the one wife he had ever truly connected with,
sat unmoving and unresponsive, as she cried next to him. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was self-preservation. Or maybe, just like everything else, Kody didn't know how to navigate a situation he couldn't manage. But the damage had been done. Robyn's emotional breakdown had confirmed what Meri's evidence had already proven. Kody made unilateral decisions that benefited Robyn. Robyn benefited whether knowingly or not. The other wives were left in the financial and emotional cold. After Robyn was dismissed, the courtroom remained quiet for several moments. It wasn't just silence, it was the sound of a family system collapsing in real time. The judge leaned forward. "I will be giving this testimony, the utmost scrutiny. It's apparent that this case isn't just about marital dissolution, but about the collapse of financial ethics in a plural family structure. And that could necessitate future probes outside the jurisdiction of this court." Everyone knew what that meant. This wasn't over. And Robyn unwittingly had just opened the door to something larger: potential fraud charges, tax consequences, and civil suits from the other wives. As the session closed, Robyn was led out a side door. She didn't talk to reporters. She didn't glance back. Her mascara was smeared across her face, her eyes 1,000 miles away. Like someone rising from a dream, and waking up to the realization they'd been sleepwalking through hell. But Meri? Meri glided out the front door, slowly, assertively, in silence. She didn't require applause, because the truth was finally doing what she could never do by herself, revealing all Kody had attempted to hide. And as the smoke cleared from this explosive meeting, one thing was clear. Robyn's meltdown might have taken the judge aback, but it had also shifted public sympathy back to the women who'd been silenced for too long. And Meri Brown, she wasn't just getting by anymore. She was leading a quiet rebellion. The courtroom had already suffered emotional tsunamis, judicial bombshells, and a raw public disintegration of a previously celebrated family. But nothing could get anyone prepared, least of all Kody, Robyn, or even Meri, for what the judge was about to say. It wasn't just a typical divorce hearing anymore. It had escalated into a reckoning. A moment of truth, in which years of manipulation, financial dishonesty, emotional abandonment, and unilateral decision-making were finally brought into the light. When the judge returned to the courtroom following a brief deliberation, all eyes in the room were fixed on him. The air was charged, thick enough to choke. Even the court stenographer froze for a second, wide-eyed, realizing that what was about to unfold was history. Judge Hayworth, a man with a measured voice and no-nonsense demeanor, pushed his glasses up onto his nose and cleared his throat. He wasn't simply about to rule, he was going to send a message. This court has carefully reviewed the testimony, evidence, and personal accounts provided over the past 3 sessions. What we've heard and seen here today goes far beyond the scope of a simple divorce. It reveals a pattern of neglect, coercion, and financial misrepresentation within a family structure that depended on transparency, equality, and consent. You could hear a pin drop. Kody, normally restless, sat quietly. His face was pale. He resembled less a husband struggling to maintain his dignity, and more a man finding himself to have lost everything. The judge went on. At the very core of this case is an issue of trust, not just between a husband and wife, but between co-wives and children who were taught that fairness, love, and respect for one another were bedrock in their family life. Sadly, Mr. Brown, your conduct indicates otherwise. And there followed the first judgment. Effective immediately, the marriage of Meri Brown and Kody Brown is legally and irrevocably dissolved. There is to be no further mediation, no waiting period, no appeals for reconciliation. It was final. More than 30 years together, Meri and Kody Brown were no longer husband and wife. Meri didn't blink. She didn't sob, she simply closed her eyes for an instant. A gentle secret smile pulled at the edge of her mouth. It was the smile of freedom. The judge wasn't finished. He directed the courtroom's focus to money. After reading the voluminous documentation provided by the plaintiff, there is enough evidence discovered by this court to conclude that Mr. Brown mismanaged and repurposed mutual family funds in a way that disproportionately favored one party, namely Robyn Brown, and prejudicially harmed the other wives, particularly Meri Brown. He paused for dramatic effect.
Thus, the court directs Mr. Brown to compensate Miss Meri Brown financially, with a sum of $415,000. There were gasps in the room. Even Robyn seemed shocked, her hand sailing to her mouth. Kody, he slowly blinked, his jaw locked, but otherwise remained silent. This recompense, the judge went on, includes emotional distress, wrongful transfer of assets, and damages due to long-term financial disparity. Mr. Brown is to sell or refinance properties held in his name, or Robyn Brown's name, if needed to satisfy the payment within 120 days. The courtroom erupted into whispers. This was a staggering amount, and it was not just about money. It was vindication. For Meri, for the other wives in the audience, for all the women who had silently endured behind the veil of a spiritual marriage. But the judge wasn't through. In addition, this court is suggesting an independent forensic audit of all family financial records over the past decade. Additional evidence of misappropriation could lead to civil lawsuits or criminal referrals. Now it wasn't personal, it was legal. This could potentially pave the way for Janelle and Christine to seek financial justice too. The entire Brown family financial system, once wielded exclusively by Kody, was starting to break apart. Next, the judge addressed the topic of property and business division. Miss Meri Brown is to retain full ownership of her independent business ventures, including LuLaRoe accounts, real estate properties acquired with her income, and all future earnings. These are considered separate and untouchable by the defendant. A smile cracked across Meri's lawyer's face. Meri's independence, financially and legally, was now sealed. But the court wasn't just going to let Kody off with a fine and a tarnished reputation. The judge then served him with something most weren't anticipating. Effective immediately, Mr. Kody Brown is prohibited from managing, controlling, or accessing any joint Brown family financial accounts, unless specifically agreed to by all adult parties concerned. This meant family LLCs, royalty accounts related to the show, and even the family trust funds of the children. This provision took away Kody's financial authority, the same one he'd employed to dominate, manipulate, and split the women for more than a decade. And in a parting shot, the judge appended, the court encourages the surviving wives, if any, to seek independent counsel and consider their own legal and financial alternatives. That final sentence? That wasn't counsel, it was a red light to Kody. Christine had already departed. Janelle had pulled away. And now Meri had taken charge of blowing up the system legally. The decision concluded, and the judge closed the folder before him. Today this court sees the bravery it took for Miss Brown to take this step, and it is the hope of the court that this ruling offers a basis for healing, not just for her, but for all members of this broken family. With a resolute thump of the gavel, the courtroom descended into shocked silence. The decision was done. Meri was free. Kody was revealed. And Robyn now had to contend with the fallout of being the favorite in a favoritism, secrecy, and imbalance-based system. When individuals started standing up from their seats, Kody remained seated, defeated, slumped. He gazed at no one, spoke nothing. His kingdom, supported by cameras and celebrity, had fallen before a judge, a crowd, and his most devoted wife. Robyn reached out to him. He moved away. That little gesture did not go unnoticed. Even the journalists whispered, he's throwing her under the bus now too. Meri slowly exited the courtroom. No hurry, no need to flee. The eyes of the world upon her, and for the first time in decades, she wasn't concealing. When spoken to by a local reporter for an interview, she merely stated, this wasn't revenge. It was clarity. And I fought for it. Not just for me, but for every woman who's ever felt erased inside a marriage that only worked for one person. A declaration that would be shared virally in hours. Quotes spilled on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Meri Brown, once considered the unobtrusive supporting character in a television polygamy circus, had become an icon of strength, honesty, and change. Meanwhile, media reports started speculating. Would Christine and Janelle go down the path of Meri? Would the show make it through the scandal? Could Kody even rebound legally, emotionally, or publicly? The fan base that used to bicker between Team Robyn or Team Christine was now banding together to support Meri. She was the first. She was wounded the longest. And she was back in the strongest way. This was not merely a judicial decision. It was a cultural turning point. A message had been delivered clearly. Spiritual wedlock may lack legal entanglements, but it has practical ramifications when established on deceit. The doors to the courtroom had barely shut on Meri Brown when her name started to trend on social media. News websites flashed. YouTube commentary channels dropped emergency videos. TikTok spliced up dramatic clips from the trial. Memes went wild on Instagram. But this wasn't viral fame for Meri Brown. It was about peace, something she hadn't experienced in decades. As she emerged onto the courthouse steps, the cameras closed in on her. Questions came from all sides. Are you satisfied with the verdict? Will you ever talk to Kody again? What's next for Meri? She hesitated, gazed into the sea of flashing cameras and booming microphones, and simply responded, "What's next? My life finally. My life." And there it was, Meri Brown's new beginning. For years she had been playing the dutiful wife, the one who clung, the one who remained when others departed, the one who thought that if she just hung in a bit longer, gave a bit more, everything would change. They didn't. And now, she was no longer waiting. She was constructing. On the internet, Sister Wives fans exploded in her favor. Meri did what had to be done. She spoke for all the women in that family. This is the moment we've been waiting for. She finally took her power back. Robyn can keep Kody. Meri walked away with her dignity and the bag. Even the show's longtime detractors conceded they never expected this. For years everyone had seen Meri as emotionally needy, silently enduring behind the scenes while Kody made Robyn a priority. But this courtroom struggle had shattered that perception. Today, she was being regarded for who she really was. A survivor, a tactician, and above all, a woman transformed. Top shows such as People, TMZ, and Entertainment Tonight carried special reports. Podcast interviews were being asked for. A book deal was said to be in the works within 48 hours. And the producers of the show, they were in a panic. Because now the dynamics had shifted. And the story wasn't Kody's to dictate anymore. Kody's collapse, the fall of the family man home, meanwhile, was a different story for Kody Brown. Gone was the self-assured, camera-hungry patriarch, who used to juggle 4 wives and a dozen plotlines. In his stead was a man staggered by public shame, courtroom defeat, and eroding power. His image had been hit directly, not only because Meri departed, but because the court had confirmed all the things TV viewers long suspected, that he financially manipulated for Robyn's benefit, that he emotionally abandoned the other wives, that he constructed a hierarchy within a lifestyle that was all about equal partnership. Insiders who were close to the production of Sister Wives spilled the beans. Kody was enraged. Not only at the judge, not only at Meri, but at Robyn as well. Behind closed doors their arguments grew toxic. According to reports, Kody blamed Robyn for driving the other wives out. Robyn, sobbing, had retorted that she never asked for special treatment, that Kody himself had made those decisions. "You ruined this family," she had allegedly yelled at him, according to a confidential source. "No," Kody had retorted. "I just stopped pretending they cared." It was a harsh deterioration. The man who once portrayed himself as the spiritual glue of a complex family structure was now alone, angry and losing grip on the empire he built. And Robyn, she was realizing something far more painful. She had won Kody, but lost the family. The other wives respond. A movement begins meanwhile. Christine and Janelle, Meri's former sister wives, weren't quiet either. Christine posted a photo of herself smiling with a caption that read, "Freedom looks good on all of us. Proud of you, Meri." Janelle then posted her own. "There's nothing more powerful than a woman who reclaims her story. #Team Meri." It was not just support, it was solidarity. Privately, insiders say that Janelle had already contacted her own legal team to assess what Meri's court victory meant for her financial future. With the judge now recommending forensic audits into Kody's dealings, the door was open for more lawsuits. And Christine? She was reportedly in talks to produce her own docuseries, focused on healing from polygamy and building a new life as a single mother. What began as a court fight between one husband and one wife now had escalated into a movement, a rebellion against the culture of control that had supported the Brown family dynamic for so long. It was a domino effect, and Meri had knocked over the first one. Meri's new life, business, books and beginnings, with $415,000 in damages, sole ownership of her businesses, and a tidal wave of popular approval sweeping her along. Meri didn't wait. A week after the verdict, she set off on a new lifestyle brand, one emphasizing self-worth, healing and empowerment. The brand? Worthy the Meri Brown Project. It encompassed a book deal already being speeded along for 2026 publication. A podcast in which she'd be candid about emotional survival in non-traditional relationships. A retreat experience for women exiting toxic relationships. The slogan, "You are not a footnote in someone else's story." It was obvious Meri wasn't simply walking away from Kody, she was walking towards her purpose. And people were ready to come along for the ride. Her Instagram engagement tripled. She was hired for a TEDx. Brands started calling, not only to sponsor her but to collaborate with her message. Meri Brown had evolved from reality television side player to icon of women's freedom in contemporary America. The future of the show, or the death of an era. TLC, the channel that produced Sister Wives, now had a grave decision to make. With the family torn apart and the central storyline deceased, could the show go on? Ratings had surged during the trial, but not because viewers were cheering for the family. They were cheering for the fallout. Producers began floating spin-offs, one following Christine's new life, one focusing on Meri's comeback story. A limited docuseries covering the full court battle was even proposed. But the original show, that looked to be on its last legs. Because without the illusion of unity, what was left? The Brown family dynasty was broken, not because of outside attacks, but because the truth finally came to light. And against that backdrop, the dysfunction was no longer able to conceal itself. The last word, a legacy red find. As Meri sat down for her first in-depth interview since trial, the world waited. Seated in a minimalist room, dressed in a plain white top and a gold necklace, she appeared serene, confident, liberated. When asked if she had any regrets, she replied, "I regret not speaking up all this time. I regret believing I needed to earn love by vanishing. But I don't regret leaving, because leaving saved me." It was a mic drop. And it was the last change in a long, agonizing and heroic journey. Meri Brown, once portrayed as the reserved, desperate wife, holding on to a shattered dream, had rewritten her history. She had confronted a man who believed himself to be above touching, and prevailed. She had demonstrated that in even the most complicated emotional wars, truth can pierce the clutter. And what of Kody? He was left with his cameras, his regrets, and the knowledge that control is not love. And favoritism is not leadership. The Brown tale perhaps isn't finished, but the chapter on dominance, manipulation, and unequal marriages. That chapter is closed now, thanks to the woman who couldn't stay quiet any longer.